What is the most bizarre thing you've caught yourself doing after your brain's autopilot misfired? Getting to work, I don't want to make multiple trips, so I have my lunch, office keys, an iPad, and iPhone in one hand, car keys, and coffee on the other hand. I should mention I thought I was a genius for balancing my phone and lunch on my iPad, thereby leaving two fingers free to insert the key into the office door. I have about a 200-foot walk to plan out how I'm going to open the door to the office without spilling my coffee. I was only concerned about spilling the coffee as it didn't have a lid. I figured I'd had everything else under control. So I get to the door, and in one smooth operation, I insert the key into the door with the pointer and middle finger of my left hand, turn my left hand to unlock the door using the pointer finger of my right hand to pull the knob downward to assist unlocking the door. This causes my iPad to tilt, making my lunch slide off the iPad, bounce off my right hand, slightly spilling the coffee, and land on the ground. I managed to catch the phone with my thumb. Phew, crisis averted. Now the door is unlocked. I pull it open with my right hand. I reach down to pick up my lunch, and in an effort to free up some fingers to snack my lunch, I release the car keys held in my pinky and ring finger. This deposits them neatly into my cup of coffee. And in my moment of panic, I continue to lean forward, release my left thumb, which causes my phone to sail majestically through the air and smack the ground face down. I place the coffee on the ground and pick up my phone to find that I have cracked the screen. Fantastic. I place my iPad on my foot, reach back to pick up my lunch, and in my return motion, knock the cup of coffee over, spilling coffee onto my freshly cracked phone. I panic again, taking a step forward, which causes my iPad to do an Olympic-style reverse somersault into the puddle of sadness that was once my coffee. iPad was okay, but the case now has an aged, antique look. I ended up throwing everything into my lunch bag and continuing to my desk where I sat staring at the wall for about 20 minutes, evaluating the events that had just occurred. A short time later, my coworker brought me my keys, which I had left in the door. Sigh. Okay, so this circus of events is why men should be socially allowed to carry purses. Story 2. After a long day of school in ninth grade, I was standing by the parking lot waiting for my mom to pick me up in her gray Highlander at the usual spot. I see a gray Highlander and casually walk in and sit down. I'd become so accustomed to this routine that I didn't even bother to look at my mom. I was looking down at my bag as I was unpacking and began sharing stories about what had happened that day in my native language. Finally, I realized my mom was strangely quiet, so I turned around to see an old Asian lady, who was definitely not my mother, trembling with fear. I didn't know if I should say something or just leave, so while trying to think of my next move, I must have wasted about a minute just sitting there, staring at her as she stared back at me. As I was getting out of the car, her daughter, who I had never met before, started walking towards the car and was kind of creeped out. She was like, "Who the hell are you?" And I had to explain the whole situation. Somehow me and that girl ended up dating, all because of that moment. So I guess sometimes your brain screwing up on autopilot can work out pretty well in the end. Story 3. Oh my god, I have so much. So first, when I was around 13 or 14, I woke up in the middle of the night in my own bed and room and thought to myself, I need to go home before my parents realize I'm not home. So I sneaked out of the house, part of me obviously aware that my parents were sleeping and I needed to be quiet, and walked a block away. Then I realized I had been in my own room and just thought, what the hell am I doing? So I walked back and snuck into bed. So weird. Second, I was getting ready for work and had a contact in one hand and a vitamin in the other. Popped the contact in my mouth and washed it down with a glass of water. I'm sure the stomach acid took care of it. Third, swished my mouthwash for a solid 30 seconds and then just hoiked it on the floor where I was standing. Fourth, applying deodorant on my armpit with my shirt still on. Fifth, I meant to put a brand new roll of toilet paper on the roll and instead I just plopped it in the toilet. Sixth, I had a very long day of computer drafting. Think 12 plus hours sitting and staring at 0.5 millimeter lines. And I got really lost, so I asked the person next to me what the hell I did wrong, because they seemed like they would absolutely have the explanation. I got most of the way through the answer before I realized not only had I asked my frazzled reflection a question, but I also calmly and matter-of-factly responded. I went home after that. And seventh, I rubbed aftershave in my hair and then put gel on my face. The worst part was that after I put the aftershave in my hair, I laughed at myself and thought, the hell was all that about? And then I added the hair gel to my skin. Oof, that last one. He was already in way too deep to even turn back. Story 4. I have 3 that come to mind. During a period when I was unemployed for a few months, I got into the habit of undoing my trousers before arriving at the bathroom. So this led to a very embarrassing situation I found myself in when I became employed again, and just undid my belt and trousers in the hallway while heading to the toilet. Now, thankfully, I realized what I was doing before I exposed myself to my new coworkers. One time, my family traveled to Iowa and we stopped at a McDonald's. They were going through the drive thru, but I needed to take a leak, so I went inside. I went out the other exit when I was done, and there was a red minivan just like ours, so I went on my side and opened the door and wasn't paying attention. I sat down, buckled my seatbelt, and realized it was a bit different, but I still did it. I looked around and the van was full of old people just staring at me, and they all looked scared. My family was in the van behind, laughing their bums off. When my son went off to college, I was stuck in the same routine that I had performed day in and day out for close to 18 years. And for some reason, this truly threw me off my entire thought process for weeks. One morning, I got up and turned on the coffee pot like I normally do and walked to his room to wake him up. However, instead of flipping the light on and telling him it's time to get up, I crawled into his bed and went to sleep. I woke up 6 hours later with both my daughters in the bed with me and the smell of burnt coffee permeating from the kitchen. I honestly didn't think his growing up and moving out would have hit me like that. I eventually stopped making extra breakfasts and trying to wake up someone who wasn't there. It did make me think of my own mother, though, and how she felt after we grew up and left. Story 5. I tried to mail my buddy a check, and it had been a while since I mailed anything. Long enough to forget how mail works, apparently. What I did was I wrote my name and address in the center and his name in the upper left-hand corner. The letter then got returned to me, but still, my first thought wasn't, whoops, I failed at mailing this check. Instead, it was, well, I guess this stamp is old and the price of stamps went up, so I put another stamp on it and sent it again to myself, again. My mailman must think I'm undeveloped. Another one, I once got my car impounded via brain autopilot. I lived across the street from a gas station and didn't drive very often. Once, I was filling it up, went inside to buy something, forgot I was getting gas, and walked home. A few days later, I reported my car stolen since I couldn't find it in the apartment garage. About a month later, I got a call from the police saying my car had gone up for auction, and only then was it discovered it had been reported stolen. I had to pay about $1,500 in impound fees to get it back. Definitely another one of the dumbest things I've ever done. Lastly, was jogging late at night. A guy reached out his hand in front of me as I passed. I high-fived him. Turns out he was hailing a taxi. Story 6. As a teenager, I worked at McDonald's. My McDonald's was 24 hours, and during the summer, I worked the overnight shift. My sleep schedule would get all messed up. My parents woke me up for dinner one evening. I zombie walked to the table and sat down. My dad asked me to say grace. I bow my head and say, "Thank you for choosing McDonald's. May I take your order?" Second, I turned around and went back home because I forgot my car keys. I was driving. Third, once I was laying in bed, very tired, watching TV. All the characters on the show piled into a car together, and I thought for a second, damn, I forgot to put my seatbelt on, before realizing I was safely in bed and nowhere near a car. And lastly, it was 2 a.m. and way past bedtime, and I'd pulled an all-nighter the previous night too. While finally clearing the table I was playing video games on, I decided to put all the water bottles away that had been out for days and days. I tossed the empty ones, but my cat was being rambunctious in trying to open the trash can, so I picked her up. I was holding my cat and putting some unfinished water bottles back in the fridge. She struggled free and hopped onto the counter, but I was too tired to scold her. So I continued grabbing huge amounts, 6 or 7 at a time, both hands, of half-full water bottles from the counter and into the fridge. I pick them up, I put them in the fridge, I pick them up, I put them in the fridge, I pick her up, I put her in the fridge, I close the fridge. I take 2 minutes to finish up the dishes, I turn off the kitchen light. I hear faint meowing. I woke up, I open the fridge. She's so cold, but she's okay. Now every time I open the frickin' fridge, she climbs in. Sometimes I don't notice her and she's trapped for a moment until I hear meowing and I know it's all my fault. The fact that the cat keeps going back in amuses me to no end. Enjoying the video so far? Please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Story 7. I came into work to work front of house after several extended nights of profound insomnia. I was holding up okay until a gal walked up with a dog in her arms. I always chat people up about their dogs because A, dogs are awesome, and B, people love to talk about their dogs and often tip a little bit more when they feel like they've actually connected with you. Today, though, I didn't have two neurons to rub together to break from the script of, hey, what can I get you? Here's your total. Do you want a receipt? And so I lean over the counter like a buzzed, lock my sleep-starved, unfocused, googly eyes on this poor lady and blurt out, your dog, who is he? And then expectantly stare at her like that was a normal and not at all insane thing that I just kinda hurled at her. She kinda stared at me and clutched her dog a little closer, and I think I probably went a little cross-eyed and tried to salvage the conversation by talking more. I don't remember what I said, but it was definitely not an improvement on the situation. It may not have been a coherent sentence. Another one, years ago, I worked at an amusement park during the summer between college, and this one time I worked an 18-hour shift because we were retrofitting a gift shop. So around hour 16, I'm practically a zombie and I go to take a break and slam a Coke. This store wasn't my normal work spot in the park, but the employee break area was identical to mine. I go into the restroom, take a leak in the stall, not even registering that there are no urinals. As I'm washing my hands, another toilet flushes and a woman walks out, clears her throat, and just stands there looking at me with her hands on her hips. The building was identical, except they switched the restrooms around. I just stammered sorry and ran away. Story 8. The night before my very first day at work, where I have to bring my own lunch, I got all the ingredients out to make my sandwich for tomorrow, and immediately after I made it, I walked into the living room, turned on the TV, and ate it. Last night, I picked up a box of cereal to put it away. I ended up accidentally taking it with me to bed. Also, two that come to mind are while playing Xbox, I get up to get a drink, then sit back down and can't find my freaking controller. I'm tearing cushions apart, looking under stuff, looking in drawers, etc. Turns out I took out a soda out of the fridge and put the controller in the spot I took it from. The other one happened the other day. Drove home from work, parked, went upstairs, opened the door, started to take off my shirt. Then I remembered it was the middle of my shift and I hadn't left to go home but just to go buy a drink. And finally, I took the metro home, then realized I drove to work. That was a long night. Oof, that last one sounds like a problem for the morning you. Story 9. 5 things at the top of my head. First, when I was in high school, I worked at a McDonald's. Most of my time, I was on drive-thru taking orders. You get the script down and go into autopilot every day you get to work. So one day I'm taking an order and tell the man his total like always and tell him to pull forward to the next window. It takes me about 5 seconds of staring at this man to realize that I am talking directly to him instead of over the headset. It takes about another 5 seconds for my brain to realize that I am working the front counter and there is no window for him to pull ahead to. Second, jumped out of bed frantically, put my clothes on, brushed all the crap on my floor under my bed, paused and realized it's 3 a.m. in the morning and I don't have school. I'm 23. Third, I dropped my pants when going through TSA. For those who fly super early in the morning, it can be rough. I purposely didn't drink coffee so I could sleep on the plane. I was in the security line and did the normal routine of taking stuff out of my pockets and putting them in my laptop bag. Then off with the shoes, placed on top of my luggage, then off comes the belt as usual. Then of course, when you take off your belt, you take off your pants. Nope. Put them back on and WTH for a moment as I finished up in security. Luckily, not that many people fly at like 4:30 a.m. Fourth, after an 8-hour day of cashiering at Target, which has so many robotic small talk conversations, I stopped at the dollar store. The conversation went something like, Cashier, hi, how are you? Me, good, how are you? Cashier, I'm good, thanks. Me, that's good. Did you find everything okay today? That conversation had the effect of everyone in line and the cashier looking at me like I was a psycho. And finally, fifth, I made the best ever chicken stock, lovingly simmered for 24 hours. Then, without thinking, I put the colander in the sink and tipped the stock down the drain, saving the scraps. I cried. Story 10. Man, where to begin? Trying to use my car keys to open my apartment door, putting in my contacts in the morning and instead dumping them in the toilet, dumping creamer in my water and drinking my coffee black, trying to find pants to wear only to realize I'm still topless and already wearing pants, also was wearing the pants I was already wearing. It's a surprise I can even make it out the door in the morning sometimes. Oh yeah, I tried to lock my door with a cigarette once. Doesn't work, turns out. Another one, there was a 6.0 earthquake at about 3 a.m., so I was asleep. My girlfriend, who was a light sleeper, woke up pretty much as soon as the shaking started and yelled as fast as she could say, Hey, wake up, there's an earthquake, what do we do? I heard everything she said, but I'm a pretty heavy sleeper, so in my panic and drowsiness, all I could think was to say, stop, drop, and roll. I guess my half sleep mind remembered that from elementary school when they taught us what to do if you're ever on fire. Of course, I don't do it as I'm still trying to wake up and gain motor functions, but my girlfriend, in her panic and probably semi drowsiness, rolls off the bed and literally stop, drops, and rolls on our bedroom floor until she's fully awake. A few seconds after the earthquake stopped, then she proceeds to yell at me for playing a prank on her while she was half asleep and scared. And by this point, I'm still in bed and can't move due to the laughter at watching her do it. I didn't actually want or try to prank her, it was just the only thing my brain thought to say. But to this day, she thinks I did it to mess with her. It still makes me cry with laughter every time I think about it. If you think she's mad now, just wait until she catches herself on fire and you go tell her to calmly stand in the doorway. Story 11. I tried to summon a genie during finals week. It had been a very long, stressful, sleepless 20-credit semester, and all my finals were in the first couple of days with my Shakespeare final at 7:45 a.m. on a Tuesday. I had already crammed for 2 other finals Monday, finished an essay overnight, and had another final at 3 p.m. I was so messed up for sleep, had drank my limit of energy drinks, and had 10 minutes before the test started. And a stray, rather limping thought popped up going, call your genie, it will solve all the problems. I was so very out of it. Everything was autopilot at that point. So I walked down the hall around the corner to the bathroom. I sat on the toilet and tried to remember how to call my genie so he could tell me magically, shove the answers in my brain. I actually pulled out my phone trying to see if I had his number. Then I had a moment of, I'm so stupid. It's an incantation. I was fully convinced that Gandalf or Aladdin's genie was going to appear. It put a slight damper on my day when my brain slid reality back into focus half a minute later. Story 12. I drove over to my girlfriend's house in college and spent the night there. Being a college guy, having that 8 a.m. class was always a pain, let alone it being January in Michigan, hence a ton of snow and ice outside. Now, that night before, we got another good about 5 inches of snow or so. Typical day, whatever. I wake up extra early, get dressed, go run outside by about 7:30 a.m. to start my car up. Old Cavalier, no car starter. Now, the thing is, this girl I've been dating for about 2 years now has the same exact car as me. Blue Cavalier, hers was just 1 year newer. Here is where autopilot starts. I put my key in my driver's side door. The key doesn't turn. Okay, the door must be frozen shut. Whatever, it happens in Michigan. I try prying a little bit more. Nothing. I walk inside, get a mild-ish, not too hot, don't want to crack anything, glass of water to pour around the door and the keyhole to get rid of all the ice. Do that, looks clear, try the door again, nothing. Okay, this thing is really jammed. Let me get the passenger door open. I go to the passenger door, place the key in, it opens, hell yeah. I sit on the passenger side, leave over, unlock the door, should have been clue number 1, lean over, hold the handle, and start beating on the door. It eventually opens from the ice. I get out of the passenger seat, walk around to the driver's side, which is now open. Sit in the seat, put the key in, and try to turn it. It won't turn. What the hell is going on? I look at the rearview mirror and there is some stupid little plant thing hanging from it. Damn it, I just spent 15 minutes trying to get into my car, which was quote-unquote frozen shut. And in reality, it wasn't even my car. The only reason the passenger side opened was because my girlfriend didn't lock her passenger door. So when I put in my key and I unlocked it and it opened, it threw my autopilot off even more. It's just so normal in Michigan winters to have your door get frozen shut that I didn't even think anything of it when my key didn't originally work. And this is why I've upgraded to having a garage and a remote start. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.